Welcome back to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. It's great to have you with us this Sunday morning. We are broadcasting from the Concierge Landscape Studios. We're brought to you this hour by Extreme Exteriors. If you're just joining us, our first story is talking about the Colorado legislature. The lawmakers there are saying homeowner associations need a lot more transparency. And they're talking about in this CBS story in Denver back in February 14th about information that they received that seemed to indicate that that HOAs are overreaching in their power, and they are being veiled and not transparent in sharing information. And so we want to go back to the source. Where is this information?
Where did they get this information? And you brought this to the program a month ago, Gene. You had a story about the HOA Information Office, a newly created office in Colorado. They had ended their first year of service, and they had some facts and figures about complaints from HOAs,
that's right.
And what did we find out last month? Before
we do that, I just want to give a little more information about that organization, too, for our listeners. Like Tony said, it's called the HOA, or the Homeowner Association Information Officer, who is responsible for putting together all of the information. This is someone who works under the director of the Division of Real Estate. The Division of Real Estate is called DORA in Colorado, and they were charged with the idea that we're going to require, this is from a year earlier, right, March of 2011, they came out, the legislature last year, and said, every homeowner association needs to register with the state office.
Right.
We need to know all of the associations that are around, and we need to know all the members who are a part of that, so that they could see how widespread this is.
Sure.
And they said people can call in with questions, with complaints. Now, this office was not charged with being able to do anything, were they?
They didn't have any enforcement powers or any judicial types of powers. They were just gathering information, correct?
Just gathering information.
And the article we read last month said that 837,622 units were registered in 2011.
Homes.
Or homes. That means homes. 837,000 homes.
Okay, so over 800,000 homes representing some 8,000 plus associations, homeowner associations.
Right.
That's right. And so during that first year, what was the total number of complaints that they received?
Well, they reported in January that as of December 9th, 2011, they had received 477 complaints.
That's right.
So we did the ratio last month of 837,000 plus units. 477 complaints represents 0.0005% of the units registered.
Yes. 5/10,000ths of 1%.
That's right.
Of
complaints.
Of all the homeowners who live in an HOA thought it important to contact the state of Colorado and make a complaint. Okay, so let's put that in perspective. First of all, that's all that complained. Now, they said that transparency was the top of the list of these complaints, and that is true.
The second article said complaints are so widespread that the state started tracking them, and at the top of the list is the lack of transparency.
Yes.
And that sounds alarming. But now we found out it's 0.005% of the registered HOAs.
Of all complaints from homeowner associations. But now let's take, they said that of those 477 complaints on transparency, 17% of them were about that one issue.
Transparency.
So only 17% of 477. Let's take 17%
okay, I got my calculator
of
here.
477. That should be about 81, shouldn't it?
0.0.
0.17.
Oops.
Yeah. Times
0.17
carry
is
the 2. Yeah.
81.
81, that's right. So out of these 477 complaints, only 81 were about transparency. Now let's put those 81 complaints compared to how many homeowners? Over 837,000. Well,
That's
if
right.
you divide that, you end up having less than 1/100th of 1% of people complaining about transparency
In the state of Colorado.
Yes.
Transparency of their HOAs. So okay.
I'll go even further.
Okay.
People may say, well, don't use that number. Let's use the number of homeowner associations, 8,091.
All right.
That are registered. If you divide that into the 81, you end up having 1/100th of 1% of all homeowner associations
had someone register a complaint.
Even being able to say, we have one complaint about transparency.
Right.
Does this put it in perspective?
It should put it in perspective, and it certainly belies this statement in February's article saying that it is a large, large problem.
Yes. And it makes me wonder, and here the legislators in Colorado are so quick to say, oh, boy, this is huge. Mm-hmm. And it was really misinformation.
And you know what? We don't. They always believe that legislation is what is necessary to correct any problem that occurs. And what strikes me about these stories, and we hear various versions of this type of story, it seems every week, is that they always want to pass new law without ever looking to see if existing contracts or existing documents are being enforced correctly. Because the legislature, the state of Colorado, may not have a law about this transparency or may not have an adequate law about the transparency, but I'll bet you the governing documents of these HOAs have something to say about transparency.
Very good point, and they're probably a lot more stringent than the state statute ever is, and gives a lot more authority to the individual homeowner. You brought up the point, the state legislature finding it necessary to make a law. And they said all of this was because of a law that was on the books that said homeowners must have a proper purpose, according to the Colorado state legislature, to access their HOA financial records.
So the current legislature thinks that's too vague, that's not strong enough, that's not protecting homeowners enough.
So I asked the question, and folks, am I out of line here? I'll ask the question. People think that this law is terrible. Well, who made that law? Was it not the Colorado legislature? And now the Colorado legislature wants to change something because they say this is a bad law.
So they're going to pass another law.
So what's the constant in this equation? You know, and I guess I'm being flippant here for a reason. It's not because we are saying that legislators are all just bad and have no purpose.
Right.
But there is a tendency here for them to go on and want to create laws on industries and on areas where they have very little knowledge or understanding.
Yeah. What they do, and we're going to talk about the state of Minnesota and what happened there this week too, but they seem to think that in order to protect homeowners within an association, they need to remove more and more of the homeowners' rights to govern themselves. We're going to protect you by removing more of your rights, the rights you have to govern yourself in this community. That's a contradiction.
Yeah. And so what is amazing here is, as I said from the very onset here, it's amazing how people can take a look at the same set of numbers and they come to such different conclusions. You know, is it true that at the top of the list of issues and concerns that were communicated to this office in Colorado, was it the area transparency? Yes, that is true.
That is true.
But is it as widespread as people are saying?
Is it even a problem? It doesn't seem to even be a problem. They've quoted one person who felt compelled to hire an attorney to get information from her association, and we haven't heard the association's side of this story.
I know. That's the other thing that's amazing. I'll just end with this. A lot of people really respect an organization called J.D. Powers and Associates.
Okay. Yep, I've heard that name.
And J.D. Powers and Associates, they're involved with global marketing and information and taking surveys on customer satisfaction. Now, a lot of people know J.D. Powers and Associates because of the work that they do in the automobile industry.
Sure, that's where I've heard it, is on the car commercials.
People are proud to say, hey, we have won this award by J.D. Powers and Associates. The cellular industry also does that, the computer industry. And so I called someone from J.D. Powers and Associates, and I tried to ask them, what is the percentage that you guys look at for someone to be able to receive this award?
Okay, so when you're doing surveys of these consumers,
yes.
how does a product earn an award?
Because I think people would say if you received an award from J.D. Powers and Associates, you have received a distinction that's something to be proud of. Well, that number of customer satisfaction is probably somewhere between 80 and 95%. No, that's quite a bit.
All right.
As well as it should be.
So if they've talked to 100 customers and 85 to 90 of them are completely satisfied with their new Honda Accord, that may earn the Accord an award.
Yes. Now, but what's interesting is if the Colorado legislators were on the panel for J.D. Powers and Associates, there would be no company that would do it by these standards when you're talking about 1/100th of a percent.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just ridiculous. Folks, you just need to make sure you know the numbers and what it is you're looking at.
And look for both sides of the story. No story we read during the week tells both sides.
That's right. Well, hey, we need to take another break. When we come back, we've got some very special guests. We're going to give you an update what's happening at the state legislature, even as we speak, concerning homeowner associations after these messages.